Hello, my name is Roger Claxton and welcome to this series of bite-sized talks entitled Poor on the Moor. The talks are in segments and based on the records in the Widdicombe archive and the project that commenced in 2011 to digitise and catalogue them. The talks are based on the contents of the recently published book Welfare in Widdicombe 1700 to 1900 written by me. You can get a copy through our website widecombe-in-the-moor.com/welfare and various other outlets. There are also e-book versions available. This is the 11th segment of the Poor on the Moor series of talks and presents some conclusions. Firstly, my apologies for the length of time of some of the talks. I didn't quite achieve my 5-minute target time limit. Even so, the talks have only just scratched the surface. I could easily have spent an hour on each one, but I'd probably have lost most of the audience in so doing. If you're interested in following up on some of these topics in more detail, as well as finding out about some additional topics not covered here, then the book Welfare in Widdicombe 1700 to 1900 is well worth a look. Also, many of the talks ended without a summary of their own, as I've left all of the conclusions to this final segment. Widdicombe, of course, is a rural parish. The arrangements for and treatment of the poor must have been very, very different in an urban setting. For instance, in Widdicombe, everyone would have known everyone else, including the poor, and would have encountered them often. The church house in Widdicombe is right at the centre of the village, very close to the church. This would make the poor and their condition hard to ignore. I'm sure most other rural Devon parishes must have or have had very similar records to the ones shown here, and a very similar approach to poor relief. So the examples here are very much a blueprint for these parishes, I'm sure. It would be good if others could study their own records to see how they compare and contrast with the experiences of Widdicombe. Something I have not found, unfortunately, is any form of personal account, such as my year as an overseer, or life in the Widdicombe workhouse. It would be wonderful to find something like that from Widdicombe or indeed from any other parish. As I was producing these talks, I was often led to think about what lay behind the entries on the pages of the documents. For instance, with highways there would have been no tarmac, of course, so stones were used, crushed and mixed with groen, etc. to form a resilient surface. Also in Widdicombe there's little mention of work being carried out by those in receipt of relief, although I suspect this must have been organised from time to time, but probably the able-bodied in general did not need to seek relief because work was plentiful. There is little explanation of why an amount of money was paid or changed, just the record of its payment, and this makes interpretation just that little bit more difficult. And the fact that taxes could be levied as often and as much as needed says a lot for the attitudes of the ratepayers. They didn't necessarily know what their expenditure was going to be for the year ahead. Perhaps it's worth making some general remarks. So poor relief in England, we've noted, goes back a very long way, and the system provided considerable income for the professional classes, for doctors, for lawyers, etc., but also provided much needed organisation and funds for the relief of the poor. It seems to have been pretty well organised, although of course we are just seeing the final documents. Generally speaking, there are no working notes preserved. The Newton Abbot Union formation marked a substantial shift in emphasis, and not particularly for the good. Landowners and occupiers seemed to be quite wealthy. Taxes were considerable, as we've noted, and probably higher at difficult times, yet they seem to have coped. This could be investigated further to see what kind of burden the taxes truly were. And finally, there are hundreds of names listed in these documents, many with associated dates and places. Much of this material will not be published elsewhere, so it provides a valuable source material for family history research, as well as for social history research. So that's the end of the segment in which some conclusions are drawn, segment 11. thank you for watching and listening. And unless popular demand requests further talks, that is also the final segment in the series. If you've got to this point, I think you've done extremely well. Thank you again for watching and listening. Goodbye.
Church, I'll make my end. Lay me down, gently down. And I'll never cross the dart again. Along the orange way, a Christian man could do